let's talk about the ear. So often when a client comes in and they have a hearing loss, what I like to do is explain to them how their ear works and a little bit of how a hearing aid will work for them. So we're going to start right now as if you were the client and I was explaining how the ear works to you, okay? So I'm going to draw it, and this here is your ear. That's the outer part of your ear, and if you have a look at me, that's the outer part of your ear here. It's called a pinna, but for now we're just going to call it the outer part of your ear. So that's the outer part of your ear, and then as you go inside, you have what's called an ear canal. And the ear canal has a funny shape like that, and at the end of the ear canal, you have an eardrum. The reason your ear has a funny shape like that is it's actually an immaculate design. This funny shape and slightly changing of diameters builds up sounds that are important to speech by almost 2 times, just by the shape of that ear canal. So sound hits your ear and it goes down into your ear canal and it hits your eardrum. And when sound hits your eardrum, it vibrates back and forth. And you can think of sound vibrating your eardrum similar to a kid on a trampoline. Kids jump up and down on a trampoline and the trampoline moves with the kid. When a kid stops jumping, the trampoline will still do this. But when the sound stops hitting your eardrum immediately stops moving. So in behind your eardrum, you have a bony hole in your head, and that's called the middle ear. And in behind the eardrum here, inside of the middle ear, you have 3 of the smallest bones in the human body. They're called the malleus, incus, and stapes. And a lot of our clients remember them as the hammer, anvil, and stirrup. But either way, they're just the 3 smallest bones in your body. The middle ear is also connected to your throat by this tube or a straw called the eustachian tube. And this here is your throat. So often when you're young, you get ear infections and you get really sore ears, and more often than not, what happens is the eustachian tube gets plugged or it doesn't drain. So the eustachian tube acts like a drain. If you get fluid in the middle ear, it drains down the tube and goes down your throat. When you're young, sometimes that tube isn't at an angle where stuff will drain, it's really flat. So then the stuff from your middle ear doesn't drain, and it builds up and it creates a lot of pressure in your ear, and eventually your eardrum will blow a hole in it and all that stuff will drain out your ear and you'll get immediate relief. So anyways, to recap, sound hits your ears, goes down your ear canal, and it vibrates your eardrum. When the sound hits your eardrum, those bones go super fast. Every time they get sound on the eardrum, the bones are moving back and forth. And they're tapping onto the wall here, like that. And here is the cochlea. The cochlea, cochlea, like that, is snail-shaped. It looks like a snail, and it's full of liquid. So when the sound hits the eardrum, those bones vibrate back and forth like crazy, and they tap onto the wall of the cochlea like that, and this thing is full of liquid. So what you can imagine is an ice cream bucket full of water, right to the top. And if we tap onto the wall of the ice cream bucket, imagine what happens to the water inside the bucket. If I was to ask you, hey, what happens to the water in the bucket when we tap on the wall of the ice cream bucket? You would say the water ripples. And that's exactly what happens here in the cochlea. Sound hits the eardrum vibrates, and the eardrum's vibrating, those bones are articulating back and forth, tapping onto the wall here, and then what happens is the liquid starts going whoosh, whoosh, super fast. And inside of here is actually where your hearing comes from. There's a nerve, it's the cochlear nerve, or the 7th nerve, whatever, and it goes off to your brain. So when the sound, when the water is rushing through here, the liquid, sending these electrical impulses off to your brain, and that's how your brain interprets sound and speech and all the wonderful things that we hear. Because inside here, when the water is rippling, the water ripples, and then over top, inside there, you have these little hairs that are sticking up in the cochlea. So the water ripples and the hairs wiggle. Water ripples, hairs wiggle. Water ripples, hairs wiggle. And whenever the hairs wiggle, the sound impulse gets sent down that nerve, and your brain interprets that as sound. And that basically is how your ear works.